ready for takeoff.
We are cleared for takeoff.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time to take flight in your community and in your life. This is Audio Airstrike.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Audio Airstrike. I'm Everett Hall-McNeill, and we're going to get right into it. First off, I want to thank everybody for being so kind and considerate to me while I was taking time to taking an extended break, re-energizing myself, reevaluating everything. For those of you that reached out to me, checked if I was okay, I appreciate it. Everything is fine. I'm still planning to crank out episodes. I just had to really take a break. And as I was sitting over here taking a break, now was the perfect time to come out with the episode as we're getting into warmer weather, as we're getting into, this is the season where people are planning different things that they want to do and stuff of that nature, and it's going to be great. And while that's great for some people, there is something that has been on my mind for a while. There is something that has been bugging me for a while. There is something that has been in the back of my mind when I see people maneuver how they maneuver. And one of the things that has been on my mind is accountability. And when I look around, especially what's happened the last couple of moments on news and on social media outlets and everything of that nature, and y'all have seen it too. I've seen groups, I've seen people that have these great causes. And all of them, their mission statement, if you look at them, it all sounds great. But when the time comes to have empathy for another group, or the attention has to go to another group that is hurting, it seems like that we lack a certain level of empathy or even accountability. And I have noticed this for a long time, and it has always bothered me. I'm somebody that is African American and a Christian, but I have respect. I may not understand, and some ideals and ideologies I may not agree with, but I respect everybody's community. I respect everybody's beliefs, and I think you should have at least the opportunity to articulate, as long as you are not deliberately hurting the livelihood or the well-being of somebody else, then okay, yes, you can get your point across. However, people have totally thrown accountability out of the window, and I have a huge problem with that. You can have your ideologies, you can have your ideas, you can have your thoughts, you can have your beliefs. Nobody is knocking you for having your own beliefs. However, you do need to understand as you go through this life that the one thing that you have to understand is not everybody is going to agree necessarily with how you believe. I remember when I was in private school. I have no shame telling people I was in private school. Yes, I was a private school kid. There was a shift that happened around, I think it was like 10. So 10 years old, getting out of fifth grade, there was a shift that needed to happen. The school that I was going to go into, which would have been another public school system, at the time, there was going to be fights happening left and right. I mean, this particular middle school that I was going to go to, fights were going to break out every other week. That's how bad it got over at this particular middle school. And my mother, being the smart woman that she is, she didn't want me around that type of environment. I did not have a choice but to be moved into the private school system. I didn't. Now, at the time, from a social standpoint, these are people that I knew. I had relationships with these people. I did not want to go, but I had to be moved into the private school system. Now, when I was moved into the private school system, contrary to popular belief, when it comes to religious beliefs, yes, you guys all think the same. But to be honest with you, and I know some people that went to public school and literally graduated through public school wondering, was there really any difference between being a private school kid and being a public school kid? Luckily for me, I had the best of both worlds. At that point, I was in a public school, even though it was elementary. I never had a chance to be in a high school public school, but I got a taste of being around people that necessarily did not think or operate how you thought. So by the time I got into private school, there really wasn't much of a difference between the public school kids and the private school kids. The only difference was the private school kids, 9 times out of 10, they grew up with stronger beliefs, and in my case, Christian beliefs, over a public school system that really didn't push any type of religious belief on you. When the time came for me to go to college, I had been around people that were pretty much with their grounded Christian beliefs, so I thought. And the thing that you realize is that life is always going to challenge your belief system in every way, shape, or form. It either is going to strengthen your belief system or weaken it. Or it could alter it a bit for better or for worse. So when I went back technically into the public school system now as a college student, I was able to be around people that necessarily didn't not think like me. They didn't think like me. They didn't operate like me. They did not have the same belief system I did. But you want to know what was key? I treated everybody with respect, regardless of what their beliefs were. And they treated me with respect, regardless as to what my beliefs were. And for those of you that were with me at that time during those college days, I always appreciate you guys for looking past the fact that I may have different beliefs than you, but you treated me with the utmost respect. And for that, I will forever appreciate it. The point that I'm trying to get to is when I went into college, I didn't walk around thinking that my ideology or my beliefs was the only one around my circumference. It was all about me and what I believed in. If you don't believe what I believe in, screw you. I didn't walk around with that mentality. I treated everybody with a certain level of respect. I tried my best to. And the problem that I'm noticing is, especially with 2 instances, that it has become alarming that we have gotten away from that. And I just want to pull this up because there was a series of tweets that pointed out something very enlightening. As you know, sadly, we had another school shooting. And I'm very sensitive to a lot of this. And sadly, we had a few Christians lose their life in this particular incident. And the person that was the shooter this time in Nashville happened to be trans. And an alarming thing that was pointed out was 1 week. Now, this is a tweet from End Wokeness. Now, keep in mind, folks, whatever tweets that we pull from do not necessarily reflect the views of Audio Airstrike. So I just want to say that out loud. I'm going to read this tweet. 1 week since the anti-Christian terrorist attack in Nashville, the White House has not said the word Christian a single time. Neither have any celebrities or corporations who all cried for George Floyd, Ukraine, and drag queens. Very fiery tweet. However, I'm not going to come off as fiery, but that does bring up an alarming thing. We can't have things one way. We can't have things one way. People, there are victims, and regardless as to if they were Christian, if they had Christian views, or something along it, but regardless of their background, we had 6 individuals lose their life, which is sad, and it happens too much. And what usually happens is when these things happen, there's an outrage of gun control, there's an outrage of this, there's an outrage of that. But the fact that Christians aren't given the same grace and the same empathy when stuff like this happens to them. And let me be clear, if the roles were reversed and a Christian went up to a gathering full of trans people and started unloading the clip, I would feel just as bad. Let's be clear about that. But some of us, and I'm not saying all of us, some of us have lacked empathy to understand that this is another human being. These are human beings just like us that have lost their life, and they have not been given the proper empathy and memorial over a heinous action, regardless of who has the gun. If you kill somebody, children, staff members, you take somebody's life unwarranted, that's just totally wrong. I don't care what belief system it is. And that was something I noticed. I noticed that, and it kind of bothers me because I'm Christian and I have Christian views, and I give everybody grace. I give everybody respect, as I should. But I don't see the same. I don't see the same grace and respect for other Christians and Christians like me. Now, I will say this. I think a lot of people will sit there and go, why should we give Christians grace when y'all are responsible for doing this, this, and this in the church, ostracizing people, doing this? And I'm like, look, I'm not making no excuses for that. That's just as heinous and just as wrong. And I'm going to be honest with you, anybody that turns around and uses God's name to act like that, spread division within the church, drive people out of the church, you were just as wrong. You're just heinous. You're just as wrong. That's not the point I'm trying to get to. That's a separate point. Yes, that does go on. Yes, that is wrong. However, I notice that we as Christians are not given the same grace that everybody else is given, in terms of we're not even given the same humanity. It's almost like if I say I'm Christian sometimes, there is this negative context. There is this automatic, oh, you're one of these modern day Pharisees that sit over there and use the name Jesus to persecute people and sit back over there and judge people, and you don't show no loving spirit. That's not everybody, folks. That's not everybody, folks. I want us to get to a point where we are not sitting over here and judging somebody because of labels. And I'm going to be honest with you. There are communities out here right now that are getting away with highway robbery at this point by putting labels on people, and putting a label on somebody, in a lot of situations, it's almost causing more division. And when you cause more division over and over and over again, the mission statement that went with your particular morals and beliefs are going to be tainted, because slowly but surely you are going to become the very thing you hate. And that's why I did this episode, because I'm trying to get people to wake up and understand that there should have been people united, regardless as to what you look like or where you come from. that said, you know what, enough is enough. We need to have a sense of empathy and a sense of, heartfelt compassion for these people losing their lives. But the thing about it is, this happens so much, and it almost is like some people get desensitized to it. I don't. But also, I want you to take into this account, too. When these things happen, we rush to gun control, which I understand why. However, the thing that doesn't get highlighted as heavy is mental health. We don't highlight that as heavy. We don't emphasize that. It's become a conversation now, and it's starting to ramp up now, better than it did when I was going to school. But when these incidents happen, mental health is not attacked and honed on the way that gun control is attacked and honed on. I am very careful. At 32 years old, I am very careful how I articulate and say things. And I need people to understand that there is life and death in the tongue. If you've been to any service or if you've been around Christians or been around religious people or people that study the Bible, that is like one of the, it's maybe not one of the most famous sayings, but it is a very heavy saying. I need you guys to understand this, right? There has always been tension between Christians and people that necessarily don't share the beliefs of other Christians. There's always been that tension. And while I've seen it throughout my whole entire life, I did not want to be another Christian that scoffed at a person just because he wasn't Christian. Some of my close friends don't believe in God. Some of my close friends have a very agnostic type of belief. They still treat me with respect and honor to this day, and I am forever grateful for that. But there are some of y'all that have other beliefs, and I respect them. But the way that you go about it, the second that you find out that somebody disagrees or doesn't agree with everything that you necessarily believe in, they're your enemy. You want them canceled. You want them to lose their livelihood, all because they said, hey, look, I respect your opinion, but I got different beliefs. And I don't think that's an immature. I think it's very immature, honestly. Because the world does not revolve around you and what your beliefs are and what you want all the time. That's not ideal. That's not even realistic. When I went into a public school system setting, I did not walk around thinking that the world revolved around me. I did not walk around thinking that if you didn't believe in my personal ideals or my beliefs, that you were my enemy. Instead, I took time learning from other people, learning where they came from, so I can have a better understanding on how society really works. So I don't grow up being a 20-something, 30-something, 40-something, 50-something delusional human being going around and canceling people because they don't agree with my beliefs. My beliefs is the right way. Folks, you're going to have a hard life if you walk around doing that to people. And I hate to tell you, whatever community that you represent, whatever cause that you represent, you are going to give your community or your cause a very, very bad name. And I hate to tell you this, you are going to be the change I hate to tell you this, because you are going to be the change that you don't want to see. I'm going to say that again. You maneuvering in that way, you're going to be the change that you don't want to see. Everybody can sit over here and talk a big game about what they want and what everybody thinks they should get. And it sounds good, and a good rah-rah speech goes a long way. A lot of people show their true colors when they don't get what they want, or when another community is getting what they want. And I need to say this very clearly. Just because a couple of people from one community in some way disrespected you, treated you bad, or something of that nature, that does not mean that that entire community is a bunch of snakes. I'll use my community. I have a Christian community. That's the community I'm a part of. Just because some of the people that claimed that they exhibited the fruits of the Spirit, just because some of the people claimed that they exude what a Christian should be, and trust me, you met them and it was the very opposite of that. That does not mean that Everett is a terrible person because he's a Christian. That does not mean that Luke is a terrible person because he's a Christian. That does not mean Bethany is a terrible person because she's a Christian. Do not sit over there and take your cut and bleed that on everybody and just make this assumption that everybody that was ever Christian is a snake in the grass and a fool. We don't do that to y'all. We don't do that to no other community. We were taught, anybody who's a real Christian was taught to show the love of God to anybody and everybody that doesn't look like you. Let me be very, very clear. Christians catch a bad rap for a lot of stuff. And half of the time we get generalized and put in a box. That's not fair to us because no other community would want that done to them. Because clearly in this country, we've seen that done a lot. When that shooting took place and I saw the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy, we can't be one way with our compassion for people. Because at the end of the day, those people are human beings just like you. I want you to think of this for a second. I want you to literally see yourself as somebody that needs to be loved and needs to be heard and that needs to experience compassion. And imagine years of not getting that. Imagine years of not receiving that. Can you imagine it? Now imagine what that does to somebody. Causes their heart to harden. They feel like life is beating them down. They feel like they don't have nobody they can trust. And over time, they feel like they only have a certain level of people that actually feel like family to them. They have a certain level of people that actually feel like friends to them. Now that you understand that, and now that you just see them as a human being, I want you to understand that and have that grace for people before you look on the outside and see what they look like. before you sit over here and take up your cause and community first, I want you to keep in mind that when these situations come up like this, it ain't just your community that's hurting. It's other people's community too. And if you are one of the ones that sit over there and say, if you don't believe in my ideals, or if you disagree with this statement, unfriend me now, you are not mature enough to understand that you are in a world where not everybody has the same belief system or the same ethics system or the same way of thinking that you do. You're not mature enough to partake in a world like that. You are being delusional. The reality of the situation is that people are coming across other people with different beliefs, different ethics, and different moral codes that you could possibly imagine. That's the reality of the situation. You cannot sit over here and assume that how you grew up is how everybody else grew up. I'm not going to, me being from the suburb, I am not going to turn around and assume that everybody in the suburb and the hood are going to have the same way of thinking, because we grew up differently. So how can I be so selfish and just be like, oh, well, I grew up this way. My way is right. These are my ideologies. And if you disagree with them, screw you. I don't want to hear it. You're wrong. No. You have to be mature. You guys have to be adults and understand that you have to learn. You have to hear the ugly truth. I hate to break it to y'all. When Christians hear the stuff that goes on, church hurt and this and that, we don't just stand there and just turn a blind eye, at least the people I'm around. We don't just stand there, turn a blind eye to it. We're like, okay, we see this as an issue and we're going to get down to it and solve it. Now, while that is being said, and yes, there are communities and circles of communities that take accountability amongst the Christian realm, those who are not Christians, those who have other causes and other communities that they represent. When one of your people within your community or cause does wrong, are you going to do the same thing or not? It's easy to point the finger. But technically, I got 3 fingers pointed back at me and a thumb in the air. We want to blame the person to the right, to the left, behind, up, above us. When are we going to take the accountability for ourselves, people? The people that are in different communities, that have different causes for different things. When one of y'all does something wrong, can you please hold those people accountable? That's all I'm asking. I'm saying this with the utmost respect, respectfully. Please hold that person accountable for what they did. Can we stop the goalpost moving? Can we stop, being picky and choosy? Can we stop being one way about compassion and integrity? Please. I just asked that. Please. Can we do that? Because if you can't, do not be surprised when the very message that you have gets tainted. You don't want to be known as one way. You don't want to be known as one way. A one-way mentality is limited. It don't get you very far. And people are right now having this one-way mentality, and they think they're being progressive. But truth be told, they're stagnant. And we sit over here and assume that we are achieving the goals that we want. Yeah, schematics wise, but at what cost? a kid is being bullied. The kid has a breaking point and then finally snaps at the bully. And it feels good for a moment. But later on, that same kid that was bullied could potentially start bullying other kids. How are you going to be the change that you want to see, supposedly, and you using the tactics of the very people that oppressed you? I'd never understand that. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I'm saying this because we need to have grace for each other. We're living in the same world. We got our own different ideologies. We got our own different communities. Like, we need to have grace and compassion because at the end of the day, I'm a human being just like you. Are we going to agree on everything? No, and it's fine. Are we going to have the same beliefs? No, and it's fine. Are we going to look the same? No, and it's fine. Here's the thing I hope you guys do. When somebody else in these communities does something wrong, and accountability has to be called for, are you going to be the one to make the call? Are you? Or are we going to keep on doing this one-way mentality thing, turning a blind eye, and then the same issues and the same tribulations and the same arguments keep happening with nothing changing? That is literally almost the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So I want to be very clear. This was not a episode to hate on people. This is not an episode to take a crap on everybody's religious beliefs or ideologies or different community beliefs or whatever. This was simply a look. You guys have to get this together. You guys have to understand that the world does not revolve around just your beliefs. Be open-minded. Be open-minded to criticism. Be open-minded to accountability, because that is how you're really going to grow. The best way to get out of that one-way mentality is literally turning on a different street. Because if you keep on going one way, you're just going to stay in that same direction. And one-way streets have limits to them. So the choice is yours. What mentality are you going to have? It's up to you now. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening. Make sure you guys tune in next week. Definitely going to have some more content for you guys on the next episode. And I look forward to sharing with you more. See you guys later. Hope you take this message to heart and make some adjustments. I greatly appreciate you for taking the time to listening. I'm Everett Hall-McNeill. This is another edition of Audio Airstrike. Until next time, y'all take care.